Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1976A, and today's date is September 22nd, 2019, and the title of the episode is The Economic Plan Evolves, Trump Using Debt as a Weapon. There's never been a better time in history to invest in the stock market. With over 30% in overall gains since Trump took office, the market continues to climb to the top. Trade Genius over the last 30 days has netted its traders over 37% on their money from spot-on trades. Their binary options program overall record is now at 161 wins with 11 losses. Right now, through September, for their fall specials, you can save over 50% off their bundled specials and or use promo code FALL for 40% off all non-bundled items. Check out TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Tell them X22 Report sent you. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, it looks like Trump is going all out now. He's not holding back. The Patriots, they have control. They have control of the economic narrative, and they are now starting to take control of the political, geopolitical narrative with spying, D-class, and everything else. And you can see moving forward that Trump is not going to let up on the Fed. And after 2020, when Trump wins the election, we're going to see something completely different. And Trump has been telling Xi Jinping and the Chinese that, listen, you need to make a trade deal now, because if you do not make this trade deal, it's going to be a lot tougher after I win the election. And I do believe he means this. And I do believe there are certain deep state operatives saying, listen, don't make a deal yet, because we do believe that we can win this. And if we win, we will go back to the way we were. But guess what? We know that's not going to happen. And we're going to see as we get closer and closer to the election, you're going to see the Chinese say, okay, you know something? We'll give on this. You know something? We'll give on that. Because they're going to watch the polls, they're going to watch what's happening, and they're going to start to realize that they have no hope. And it's all going to start to happen for Trump and the Patriots. The deal will be made. And all this talk about recession and all this talk about the trade war being the trigger point, it's all going to fall apart. This is why Trump has been out there pushing and pointing the finger at the Fed. He's setting up the entire narrative so everyone understands that it is the central bank that is the problem. Now, Chairman Powell, he is saying that, listen, we are going to start stimulus. We know it's going to happen in November. He also said it is certainly possible that we'll need to resume the organic growth of the balance sheet sooner than we thought. So what does that mean? It means that they're already doing it. Remember, we talked about how they were purchasing bonds? Instead of unloading their balance sheet right now, we can see already they're adding to it. They're going to expand the central bank's balance sheet through the outright purchases of U.S. Treasury securities to ensure stable liquidity. Think about what they're doing here. They're doing exactly what Trump wants. And we need to understand that since Trump has been pointing the finger at the Fed, and it started out very slowly. It started out where he said, oh, the Fed should not raise the interest rates. They should stop raising them. They should hold them steady. And then he went on and say, okay, now that since they're steady, they should lower the rates, because look what other countries are doing. And they lowered it by a quarter point. Trump came out and said, listen, we need to lower it again and start stimulus. And we can see every time he comes out and he says something, they follow maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months later. Remember, optics are very important. It can't look like Trump is bossing the Fed around. Then the mainstream media would go crazy. The mainstream media would say, hey, look, the Fed's not independent. We know from Judy Shelton, she's already saying that maybe the Fed and the White House, they should work together. This will happen later on. But what we see happening right now, Trump is going to be using debt as his weapon. The Federal Reserve is going to take on more debt. They're going to add to their balance sheet. Think about what's happening here. Think about the world. the world is saturated with the central bank debt. And there are many countries out there that had to implement austerity. And the central bank dictates to the countries of what they need to do. Trump right now is going to be using debt to push the central bank system over the edge. How would you destroy the central bank? Well, you would use their weapon against themselves. Think about how the central bank system works. As their system moves forward and it comes to the end stage of their system, throughout this time, debt is accumulated in every single country. Q has showed us that there's a private Western central bank system in almost every single one of these countries. Then we have the IMF, then we have the ECB, then we have the BIS, then we have the Rothschild banking system on top of all this. But their entire product is debt. And when the debt load gets too heavy, their entire scheme starts to implode. And they need a way out. This is why they look for a war, an event, or something. So this way it takes all eyes off of what they've done to the world and puts it someplace else. They don't have that right now. Trump is telling the Federal Reserve that you're going to add more debt to the system. You're going to take on more debt. Think about this. The world has to do this. How do you destroy them? If it's imploding with what they have now, if they add more debt, it lets everyone see exactly what this system does. As these central banks add more debt and continually add more and more and more, guess what happens? The whole thing just completely implodes. Think about a balloon. You add more air, it expands, it expands, it expands. At some point, it completely pops. That's what's going to happen to the central bank. And Trump is going to continually push the agenda until the very, very end. He wants the people, not just here in the United States, but around the world, to understand that it's going to be the central bank that is responsible for all of this. He tweeted out the following. Go across the world and you'll see either very low interest rates or negative rates. The president wants to be competitive with these other countries on this, but I don't think he'll fire Jay Powell. Even if I should, we should always be paying less interest rates than others. Now, if the Fed lowers rates, what do other countries do? They have to lower rates. What happens next? They need stimulus. They need to create more debt. Trump is driving the central banks around the world, and he's driving them right off and over the cliff. And like I said before, in the beginning of a central bank system, everyone thinks it's fantastic. Why? Because you come off of a gold standard and you see inflation like you've never seen before, which means they raise the interest rates to control it all. And people think this is fantastic. Well, your house went from $5,000 to $20,000. Your salary went from $3,000 a year to $10,000 a year. Interest rates are at 16, 17, 18%. And your dollar value suddenly drops. But you don't see that in the beginning. What you see is inflation where the value of your dollar drops, which means you need a lot more dollars. And people think, oh, my home price has just gone up. Oh, look, I'm making more money. No, what that really means is that your dollar's worth less and they need more of those dollars to pay you the same amount that you were actually making. And if you're holding gold throughout this time, gold holds its value as the dollar continually drops. And when you're at the end stage of a central bank system, wages drop. Hardly any inflation. The interest rates have to go really, really low because can you imagine if they took the interest rates of what we had in the 70s and they took those interest rates and used them today and made them 16, 17, 18%, what would happen to the system? It would implode. the whole thing would just come to a screeching halt. First of all, we wouldn't be able to pay the debt, the national debt. Everyone that had a car loan, a home loan that was variable, or trying to get a student loan, would anyone be able to function? No. This is what it looks like at the end stage. Everything is the opposite, and that's what we're seeing right now. And Trump is going to use their weapon against them. He's been using everything against the mainstream media, the central bank. When they talk about the stock market, when they talk about unemployment, GDP, when they talk about debt, all of this now is being used against them. He's using their weapons now, and he turned them against them. And this is what we are watching right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.